Hi, everybody, and welcome to Art of Heart. I'm Marissa Campbell, and as you guys know, good things happen on Thursday, and today's Thursday is no different. I am legit stoked because my guest today is not only straight up my homegirl, but also we have such amazing career parallel paths and so many life things that I'll say something and she'll be like same, or she'll say something I'm like I've totally experienced that. So like for two humans who live on opposite ends of the country and have had a whole lifetime without each other. We've had a lot of really cool parallels. I can't wait for you to learn more about her and her hearts and the impact she's making on the world. So without further ado, hi friend, how are you?
Hello, friend. How are you?
I'm good. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Like, who are you? What makes you tick?
Oh boy. Who am I? Dianne Rosenberg, as you can see. What Marissa just said is so true. We connected through a mutual friend who said, I think y'all share some parallels. I think you guys would get along. So, um, when I reached out and Marissa's like, so this is what I'm doing, and I was like, oh my God, can I pick me? And so that's the kind of stuff that makes me tick is when meeting people that have a vision about uh, doing good and doing well and being passionate about leaving the world a better place, and maybe being a little bit different, or maybe a little bit on the on the edgier side, or maybe um, tends to think differently than most other people, or approach things uh, from an angle that nobody else thought of. That's the kind of stuff that makes me tick. And I'm always like, how did you think about that, and what brought you here, or tell me about your life, because I think our life journeys are so we think that they always have this like very broken down pattern, but I got here through all different ways and means. So that's the kind of stuff that makes me tick.
I always say it's a series of unfortunate events and not all of them are unfortunate, but it's always something, right? Like it's
Right.
never like I never woke up that morning and was like, this is what I'm gonna do and this is how it turned out. That has never been the case for me.
Never. And that's what makes
No.
it exciting. So today I got ready and I was like, I gotta get ready. And then, when that time frame compresses, you're like, okay, now how's this gonna affect the rest of my day? But what really happened was cool. Another thing that makes me tick is I got in and I had in my office, I have these great windows, and I have a window open in the middle. And this has never happened before. I've been here for probably about 4 years in this office, and these two pigeons just flew right up, and one just sat there at my window and was like, hey, can I come in, what's going on? And I was like, hey, what's up, friend? And I tried to get like a little recording. It was really bizarre, and I looked it up, and there's a lot of symbolism about pigeons that is very good and very positive. They bring a divine wisdom. Seeing a gray pigeon is like inner calm and peace, so it gave me an instant like moment so that I could enter the space with you. And it also said about collaboration and deepening relationships with creatives, and a creative mindset. And just I'm like, okay, that was an auspicious sign that what we're about to do today is good.
I always feel like the gifts from the universe are incredible and this wonderful thing that happens. And when it happens to me, right, it's you're in a video game and you get an extra life, or you get a superpower or something that happens, right? Like you're collecting all these things. When I'm not in alignment, I don't see any of those things. And I always feel just so empowered when those things happen because I do feel like it's a gift that says, "Hey, you're in alignment, you're doing a great job." For me, it's really interesting. I see hawks every single time I'm either on my way out of town, I
Mm.
always see a hawk. Or if I'm deep in thought when I'm driving, I will see hawks, and so I'm always like, "Hey, buddy, how you doing?" I have a friend who sees cardinals, cardinals will pop up, and so I love all that. So, before we dive in to more about Diane's story, one of the parallel things that we share is we both worked in human capital. And for those of you who don't know what that is, basically we were in staffing. So, our product was people. And we worked on kind of two different sides of the people front. but there's so much that you learn when your product is people. Whether I always used to say people are not boxes of paper. I cannot deliver them all lined up exactly how you want them. People have things that happen to them. They're late. Sometimes they make poor decisions. Sometimes you have the wrong person for the job, whatever the case is, right? But when your product is people, it's a very different career life path. And we both feel very strongly to leave things better than we found them. And it's so interesting because if you haven't worked in a people centered world, you just don't know. Like we could sit here for hours and tell you guys the most entertaining stories about things that have happened in our career, the wildest things you would never believe unless you were there. And one of those things that we both feel so strongly about is how people are treated. No matter where you are in your career, whether you're the CEO or the janitor, or whether you're picking up trash on a pile because the wind is blowing, or whether you're cleaning a stadium or parking a car, those are still humans. Every single one is a human. Um, so, Diane, tell me a little bit about like your journey through staffing and your discovery of the human is the human, not just a job order.
Wow. Okay. So I don't think anybody ever chooses to go into staffing, right? You kind of know. Like when I grew up, I want to be in staffing. I'd rather be a fire truck, or like, but
Yeah.
um so I found my way into that world what and because of the people I had initially connected with and um the way that they centered people at the heart of what they were doing. We were specifically working with truck drivers. I'd never worked with truck drivers before. I'd never been in recruiting at all. So I was like, okay, what's this? And they always said people matter. And when you get up, somebody walks in the room, doesn't know you from Adam, doesn't know you from Eve, get up, shake their hand, offer them a drink, a cookie or something. And it was that, my background is really nonprofit, arts, different things, very music. So when I felt that they were actually putting people in the center of that model, I didn't feel like it was a business. I kind of felt like it was a nonprofit heart in a for-profit body, right? And then it was really cool, and it really um, all of my different backgrounds in data and working with people and my degrees and my experience, just all the different weird things I've done, really kind of led me to that spot. And then over the years, I worked my way up. I went into the IT part of it, and then operations, and then 13 years later, I'm the vice president, and my life falls apart. So I always said that staffing and it is it's the business of people helping people. And when you add that kind of layer of people, including yourself and your team, and it's just the dynamics are extremely unpredictable so many ways. And also when we find ourselves in the middle of that model, maybe not being as centered or not being or having our own issues and things, it just really it kind of spirals out from there. So it was an interesting journey. I love that I did it, and I learned a lot. And if without that, I wouldn't be where I am today.
Right, and it's the learning of the lot. Like my time, I worked at a company called True Blue, and we were a day labor blue collar staffing company. We did lots of other stuff, but that was the core of the business. And I used to tell people it's like every day is like dog years, and not in a bad way, but because you work with every industry, and we had thousands, tens of thousands of workers out every day. We'd had 790 locations across the US and Canada. Like every day was this wild series of learnings that would happen at the speed of light. And it really, I believe, propelled my career because I number 1, I learned how to work with people who were helping people who were helping people, right? And also, like, just the sheer volume is wild. And there is I will never forget, I had walked into a branch. It was my very first day. And you have those moments, I call them waypoints, and we talk about them on that's the whole kind of the whole reason why we have the show is talk about these waypoints. But for me, I walked into a branch, and it was in a really rough part of town, and I showed up with all my fancy things, and I had, a fancy bag and a giant diamond and a fancy car and all the things. And I was like, "Wait a second. What am I doing?" Like, I don't really understand what day labor is. I mean, like, they said it's a staffing company. I was working in national account management, but I really did not understand the core of the business. And I walked in and it was a labor hall. So there was 40 people sitting there drinking coffee, waiting for an assignment. And there were 5 women behind the desk, and they were popping, and I mean popping. They were moving. They're like, "Hey, like James Buchanan and Thomas Edison, like you got a job," and they're handing out work tickets, and they're like, "Okay, let me see your PPE. You got safety glasses? Okay, no, hold on. You get the safety glass." And it was like this well orchestrated machine. And as they first walked into the door, a gentleman opened the door and held the door for me and said, "Good morning." And he said, "Are you in the right place?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm in the right place." I said, "I work for Labor Ready." And I stood there for a second because it was so much happening. I was like almost a little like shocked, right? I'm like, there, how am I ever gonna learn all these things? Because they were just this well-oiled machine. And so they had me come behind the desk and they called it a fishbowl because it had a high lip on it. It's like when you were behind the computer. And, this older gentleman came up to me and they said, "Hello, Mr. Gregory," whatever his name was. And, they the manager said, "How's your wife today?" And, he said, "Well, she's having a better day today, and I can go to work." And so she's like, "Okay, we got you on this ticket. It's good. Just let me know about tomorrow closer to the end of the day." And she turned to me and I said, "Everybody has a story, don't they?" And she said, "Everybody has a story." And she said, "Whether it's, a a misconceived notion that because you have bad credit, you can't get a regular job, right? That you can only work temp labor, or whether there's something that's happened in your life or your past and you feel like this is your only option. Or if you're like Mr. Gregory and his wife has cancer and they're in the throes of treatment and he's a skilled worker, but he can only work on days where she feels better." And she said, "We offer a place for everyone to, if you needed to feed yourself today, you could show up, do a job. It may not be great, but you could do a job and you could eat." And that sense of when you talk about like that nonprofit heart within a profit business, those of us who were like true bluers, like we showed up at 5 a.m. and we worked until midnight and we made sure that we had the right jobs with the right people so that if anybody needed to eat, they could, or anybody needed that job, it was there. Um, but it lacked career pathing and it lacked the education that we care so much about. And it lacked how do you move to the next job? How do you use this as an entry point to a real stable workforce? And it worked for some people. We created some programs, but it wasn't scalable. Um, and that heart of that business changed me forever, gave me all the skills and all the things that I am doing today. Um, and so I know we're both very grateful for those experiences and the people we met along the way. Um, so now that the listeners kind of understand, because I think this background helps to understand what you're doing today. So tell us your first story.
I recently was doing reading something, and somebody had mentioned Dark Night of the Soul, and I really so like put a pin in there. Um, so I what and I'm seeing these stories all over the place now. Again, part of like these symbols or maybe the patterns, or maybe, hey, algo, the algorithm is like, I think you might want to see this. Um, so let me share you the story. But I'm seeing these stories all over the place where people, and especially women, are going through their career path, whatever, what they think is the right journey, right? We are sold this thing, right? We're sold this idea. I didn't really take this path, but we were sold this thing. Go to school, do really well, um, find your job, find your niche, find your job, your career, work your way up, all the way up, all the way up, all the way up, and then up, and then you'll retire, and then you'll be happy. And they lived happily ever after. That doesn't exist, and
Nope, not true.
it's so not true. And the way corporate America is is set up today, it's like everybody's a resource. Back to the thing about people are not inventory, but they treat all of us. We are simply a resource. And how do the heads fit in, and how the ROI is. So when you get into that structure of go through the path, work your way up, work your way up, you start to sacrifice more and more and more and more of yourself, um,
Until there's nothing left.
until there's nothing left. And then what do? You define yourself on your title, right? What? Hi, Marissa. Tell me about you. Well, I am a vice president of Checkadabdi blah, and it's okay. That tells me nothing about who I have come to know who you are. This amazing, multidimensional, brilliant mind. But we, especially I think in this country, we really do define ourselves on our job title, where we live, what kind of car we drive, blah blah blah. And so you forget once you're into that system and you keep going. And this is what happened to me. I was on a very different path, doing a lot of different things, but I got into the system. I was like, great, I finally have stability. I finally have a path. I want to work my way up. You hear that when you interview people. I really want a place where I can work my way up. But there's nothing about fulfillment. There's nothing about, does working your way up the ladder actually fulfill your needs as a human being, right? Nobody cares about that. Corporate does not care about that for sure. So, and you that starts to fade out of the out of the window. It's like, fulfillment, what? My kids, what? My spouse, what? I got to keep working. I got to keep working. And the culture of corporate specifically, and I pick on corporate a lot because it's endemic, and this is where I see these people having the same episodes like I did. You just you subsume yourself as a human being to be more productive for the bottom line of generally some very wealthy person at the top who could not care less if you live or die. So what I was, and I know that you've experienced the same thing. And so over the years, um, got more responsibility, more sacrifice, more responsibility, and the stress levels were out of control. And it starts subtly. It starts very. It's I don't know. It's like a little spot or a little fungus or something that starts to grow, and you're like, whatever. And over time, I started to my thought patterns started to change. I was becoming more paranoid about things. Around August 15th, I forget what year it was, but it was like about 3, 4 years ago. 4 years ago, I think, started having panic attacks daily. And you think you have panic attacks when you're like, oh yeah, no, no, no. These were full blown, freaky, scary panic attacks. Um, I, I couldn't get stable in myself and how I was thinking and how I was feeling, and it all started to just get worse day by day. I started to have, it's completely, my relationship at home started to crumble. Friends I had had for years, I couldn't connect with anymore. My work relationships started to deteriorate. It was, and with the panic attacks and everything going on, I eventually had a complete break. So when we talk about what my heart looked like at that moment, that's part of why I love this. What you're doing here is it completely shattered, and my I woke up in the middle of the night and I sat up in a complete panic, and everything, my vision, everything was shattered. And so if you look up like an ego death or dark night of the soul, it it describes that. And I don't know if people, whether you believe in quantum theory, quantum physics, quantum consciousness. If you think that world split off, and I think maybe if my world had split off in one world, I'm not alive anymore. I'm not. I don't exist anymore. But I'm still here, and I
Yeah.
am now a completely. I feel like a completely different person in so many ways. And so after that break, what broke me built me. That was the title I think I created. Um, I started to rebuild, and I I chose to live. I chose to be here. I left my job. I I was already meditating every day, but I started to really get into meditation more. I went back to my art. I went back to music. I started to, I took almost a year to heal. I'm still healing. I'm still healing every single freaking day. And so, but I'm very grateful for that, because if it weren't for that break, I don't know what would have happened to me.
I want to go back just a little bit in your story because I think the more I talk to people, the more I realize that 100% of people are not okay. And I'm not saying that everybody is as broken as we have felt at that breaking point in our life because I also experienced a very similar situation. Um but everybody has some degree of they bought into this thing, which is you explained, like, you go to school and you get good grades and then you go to college and you get this degree, and then you're going to get a good job and you're going to work your way up and you're going to get married and have 2.5 kids, and then one day you open your eyes and you're like, I'm miserable because the system has leached everything out of my soul. I have lost who I am. I lost my art. I lost my music. I lost all the things that uniquely make me me, which, by the way, I would argue to any corporate person ever, is what makes your human capital the most productive, the most creative, the most ingenuitive, is that thing that makes them them, and we crush it out of people and we lose that spark. I really like neon, right? I really like, if the more obnoxious, the better. And I, of course, have ridiculously loud shoes. And I have a pair of Nikes that I'm super obsessed with right now. And they're like the hottest hot pink and almost like a fire engine red, but somehow they get brighter. And but I can't tell you, every time I wear those shoes, I get 15 people who say, I like your shoes. And what I say to them is, they're so fast. And they look at me and they're like, the shoes are fast. And then I say, and it's something I'm playing with. This is, it's a very, very genuine response, but I'm playing with this concept. Um, and I said, when you're a kid and you get a new pair of shoes and you really think they're fast, like they make you faster, and you're like, look at my shoes, they're so fast. We lose that. That gets literally leached from who we are. And I was in an airport and had this conversation just a few days ago, and the lady said, oh my gosh, we have all lost our spark. And I said, we have. And she looked at me with this fear in her eyes because that simple thing, like they're so fast, triggered something in her brain. Is like, wait a second, I'm not creative. I'm not doing all these things. I have lost whatever it is that's in me. And I think that we don't, number one, take the time. Most people who would have had a break like we had would have put things back together and kept going. But we both had that moment and we chose, do we go back to the old way because we could have, or do we stand in who we authentically are, in our truth, and all of that we are? The people who like to stop and look at the flowers and are making art and are still working really hard, but towards something that provides fulfillment. Um, and so, number one, it's super brave of you to share that you were not okay. Um, because most people are scared to say they're not okay. Um, and number two, I do very much believe that you get a second chance, and what you do with that matters. So tell us about how the story continues.
Well, it didn't just immediately get better. I had to stand in my choice to not go back. And that was hard. And that was hard because I had to, talk to my spouse and say, I can't go back to work. I can never go back to that experience of work. And I have dreams. I have things that I've been wanting to do, but I've been too scared to actually take the chance. And especially when you have that everyday job, that everyday paycheck, which increases over time. If you're lucky, you're doing well. It's so hard to walk away. It wasn't necessarily golden handcuffs, maybe silver handcuffs, but
Yeah,
there's a
they're
that
pretty fancy.
yeah, that term exists for a reason. So when I was literally flung out of the system and I had been begging the universe, I was like, I can't do this anymore. I can't do this anymore. And I was flung out. Um, I had to stand in that truth and fight for my right It's a party, but to actually, reset and start to build the dream of something that I felt was so important. First, starting with going back to doing art, which is my connection to soul, and getting into a couple shows and just doing that, just feeling brave again, and then just building from there. So I took an old idea that had been sitting, that started as an Excel worksheet with a couple questions, and it was something that I was calling the F gap. It was like the fulfillment gap, and that started when I had a coach. I'd actually hired a coach who I found in my spam, by the way. So, oh, check your spam, people. I had gone through my spam and I saw an invite from her. I don't know how I got on her list, but Dr. Sam, she was fantastic. I'm still connected with her. She told me, she's like, you should be like a life coach. And, but from those conversations, I was like, this is the F gap. And it's, these are the 4 areas: wellness, health, blah, blah, blah. And I wanted to do it, but again, I couldn't do it at that time. It wasn't the right time either, by the way.
Yes. And that's the thing. So what happens is, like, when I started thinking about Art of Heart, it was probably about 10 years ago, maybe 15. But it wasn't the right time, and honestly, I had a lot of learning to do, and there's a lot of things that had to happen inside me to be able to birth this thing. But what happens is we get busy and then we think, "Well, that's stupid. Well, that's not gonna work." Well, and you think of a million reasons why, but what if there's just one reason why it could be yes? And you found your yes.
Yeah, yes, and yes. And I connected with somebody through a client, and we were talking about the same stuff that you and I talk about. If you had anything you'd want to build, what would that be? And it would be, and she's also related to staffing as well. And it was like, I would love to have a business or something, a program that puts helps to see the full person as they are and not define them on what they've done, but what they could do. Yeah, and help them define the path forward, right? Instead of following that path and falling off. If you remember The Price is Right, you fall
Love
off, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I love that game. Anyway, and I started telling her about the F gap because it really fit into the model of our dream business or dream organization. And she said, "You know what? You should build that." So fast forward, um, now at this time, AI was already out, and Chat GPT, and everybody was like, or this might be cool. But that also, right? And still, I think there's still 2 camps. So there's a third camp, like I have to do it, don't want to do it, but I got to do it. But there's low code, no code platforms. Having an IT background. I don't know how to program. I don't know code, but I know enough to be dangerous. So I found this low code, no code platform, and I started playing around with it and building it and doing all these things. And I was like, okay, I think I can make this a thing. I think I can make this a thing. Meanwhile, I'm still, consulting, doing some other stuff, but it started to keep coming to life and keep coming to life. Then I went and I took a chance, and again, another chance. This is all investment in yourself as a person, right? I went to MIT this summer and I had a blast and had some amazing classes, and I met some very cool freaking people. See, I'm trying to be like really good. And I met some really cool people, and I was telling them about what I was developing, and even professors at MIT were that we need this stuff, we need something like this right now, and so I kept getting pushed, and through a connection at MIT, a UX UI developer, this this amazing woman. I connected with her and I said, I need your help. And anyway, fast forward, it's on the app stores. It's on through Lovable, this great platform. So I moved from one platform to another, and I found Lovable. And not to like plug Lovable, but I love Lovable. And we were able to put something really cool together. So it started as a spreadsheet with like 20 questions, is now a live app on the Google and Apple Play stores, and it's there. And so I'm really still building that and doing everything in I've gotten some really good feedback on it, but it's to help us. Here's what it does. It says, okay, are you stuck? I don't care what you've done. I don't care who you are. I don't care what background you have. Blah blah blah. Are you stuck? All right. get in and talk to my little pharaoh cat chat
Super
friend,
cute. Yep.
right? And let figure out what answer some questions about what makes you feel fulfilled. What are your core values? What do you think is important to you? And if you haven't thought about it before, maybe you might want to think about what you feel is important. And that's going to change. It's not like your core values
Not
might
one and done.
right. It could change, but anyway, it's just to help you get unfrozen, just give you some micro tasks, make you feel supported, make you feel heard. And it leads to a whole bunch of other things in the product suite now that we're still developing. But if I hadn't, Marissa, if I hadn't been flung out and broken, I would have and realized that my path forward is the path that I choose to 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 protect and to forge and to um, commit to and to be brave and to say even if I fail, I tried because I already failed. I've already broken down. I've already lost my mind. So it's like
I broke all the things. Let's
I
what
broke.
else? What else you got?
That's right. So yeah. So here we are.
So, I had seen the original Excel, and it was really the concept was really genius. Remember, I'd seen the original. And so last night I went through and downloaded the app and went through the prompts, and there was a couple of things that really stood out to me. Number one, it's gorgeous and it's simple, and that I love that because again, life is so complicated. You've got a million things coming at us, like, you know, it's always just so much, and it was these really simple questions that I could choose from some words to what was most important to me. I didn't have to think about the words, which was number 1, really helpful. But I think the thing for me that was so shocking, and it was really shocking because I sat there and I stared at the phone and I was like, because, you think for me, I'm on this journey of I want to just if on every episode of this podcast, one person has an aha moment and says, I want to talk about my heart, or this is going to help me in my burnout, or I'm learning a tool or a skill. That's why I'm doing this. I care very deeply about that. Um, but also, I feel like I'm really pouring into myself on, I don't know if for me it's healing or for me it's remembering um, who I was when my shoes were still fast before I got so programmed by the world. Um, and I feel like I'm doing a really good job. And this isn't like Marissa's awesome and she's no, but like I'm putting the time in. I choose me every day. I'm saying no to things that don't align with me. I am making sure that every day I tether, like, yours is art and music. And I'm every day I'm doing, like, I feel like I'm doing all the stuff. And I looked at the app last night and I'm like, I have an effing gap. And it's true, right? Like I really do. There are some gaps. And the way you frame it, it is not there. And so for those of you listening, go to the Play Store, download, answer the questions, right? Where is your gap? And when you think about your gap, it's whatever it is. Like if yours is integrity and your integrity is it's a scale of 0 to 10, correct? Okay. So if your integrity is important to you and it comes up on your list of things, okay, great. If your integrity is currently at a 5 and you want it to be at an 8, you have a gap, right? That simple visualization of I have a gap now allows you to say, what am I doing about that? It's not, and again, it's not 30 things. It's not one thing. It's a discrete group of 5 things. And you now get to choose how you work on your gap. It's so ingenious because it allows you to then create micro movements or something that gets you closer. But I can tell you, since I did it, I can tell you, and some things I didn't have a gap in. Some things were important to me, and I didn't have a gap. And then I could say, "Oh, I'm doing a good job on that one." It's really cool, friend.
That's exactly it. It's like there's a gap. That's what's that fulfillment gap. And as you go through the tasks and you do your things, it's going to prompt you at some point to reestablish your map, your FGAP map. And do you want to move anything? Have you improved? And so that's built in. There's a little community where you can just share micro. Every day there's like different, like today I'm effing ready to drink a glass of water. Today I'm effing ready to call somebody I haven't spoken to in 10 years, and you just click that and it's just that's the community. Or you can share a win. You can actually share them to your, social medias or whatever. It's just, it's going to change over time, but um, what it was to what it is. And I've already heard stories about people saying that they were crying talking to Pharaoh. And I was like, Pharaoh is Fero, by the way, because I was like, uh, but you'll see. Anyway, and I said, that's great. I, you know, yes, it's a safe space. I've programmed it to like be safe. There is one, you can choose your different, like, how do you want Pharaoh to show up for you? And there's one, it's like a tough love. And I've tried that one. I'm like, I don't like that. I'm
Too
like, that's
tough
too
for
tough.
me.
I don't want that. You're too mean. But some people really react to that and they love that. And I'm like, I was about to take that out, but anyway, it's taught me so much about. So the funny thing is how Rissa and I connected to do this is testing the app. I had to like answer the questions 7,000 times, like what fulfills me. Okay. And you're like, blah, blah, but you have to put in real answers. And I was like,
Right.
after the 7,000th time, I was like, I guess I know what really fulfills me because I've had to answer this so many times.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really fun. And it really came down to a couple of same core things: nature, creativity, health, balance, and love, and you can add your own core values. But anyway, and so when you were like, hey, I'd love to know more about that. And so I'm so glad that we did this because,
Me too.
yeah.
It took me a really long time of chasing titles and chasing milestones. Um, I think we're taught, right? We're taught to chase milestones. And when you chase milestones, you never catch them. You may have put one in your pocket, but the new one pops right up. And when you're constantly chasing milestones, there is no joy. And especially when you attribute that joy to a milestone, it's not there. And then you sit there and you feel empty and you're like, what am I doing? Like, why do I not feel the thing that I feel when I'm in the car and my favorite song from 15 years ago comes on and I can sing every nuance of every word and the wind is in my hair and I get that vibrant feeling. How come that's not the feeling I get when I hit a milestone? Or how come I get more excited? Yesterday, a squirrel decided that he was going to literally knock on my window and climb the screen, and for like 20 minutes he was like, lady, I want inside, it's cold, and I think there's snacks and cuddles. Like, that brought me more joy than some of my biggest milestones.
Yeah.
And figuring out that mine was adventure, wonder, and genuine human connection was life changing for me. That's where I'm fulfilled. um Not about all this other stuff. And the more I'm open to sharing my story, even when it's really hard, and I do think that for most people, when you get in this app, if you don't have that moment of pit in your stomach, you're not answering the questions right. You're not.
That's a great point.
Um, because you look at it and you go, wow, I have a gap. And then it's, what do you do with that gap? And how do you put that gap to the top of your priority list, right? Because you are this this journey is not about your title. And it's not about how much revenue you made for your company last quarter. And it surely isn't about however many widgets you sold or what your customer service score was. You can do a good job at those things, and you can go and you can show up and be the best version of yourself to do those things. But when you're done, it's about you and your relationship with yourself. And did you figure yourself out? And are you good to yourself? Are you your own best friend? When you So Diane, in this process, you've put a lot of hard work into it. And hard work has never been the problem for either one of us. No. Um, so what does it look like to take care of yourself and be your own best friend when you're in the midst of all this hard work?
Uh, that's like I said, it's still a journey. I'm 48 years old, and I'm just now trying to make sure I love myself. That sounds so, and it sounds so dumb, but
It's not
um,
though.
it's not. I said this recently. I said I want to fall in love with myself. Finally, fell in love with so many people and so many things and my my pets and and I'm like, I've never fallen in love with myself. And we're in a society where it's very like, who are you and how pretty do you look? And I was like, oh God, my 11s are here and whatever, but like I earned this. I earned
I
that,
did
you know, many times.
many
And
times over.
ugh, so I'm just trying to figure out how to fall in love with myself still every day. But that means showing up and resting and meditating and taking walks. And um, I just broke up with my one of my long-term best friends, and that was really hard. That was really, really, really hard. And so, but that these are things that you make these decisions on to say no more, and
Yeah.
now me first, and not in a, and not in a, it's like put your mask on first before you put somebody else's mask on. It's not being selfish, but it's being self-aware and self protective in a way that your ego doesn't have to do these things to stress you out, give you panic attacks, and say you're misaligned. We're going to give you all the signals, and then if you don't pay attention, so yeah, so still every day. So when I was thinking about what my heart looked like post shattering, it's the art of kintsugi. I think I'm saying that right, but I hope so. Um, it's it's a practice where I think when a vase were to break, they would repair it and put gold in the seams to make it more beautiful. And so um, that's how I feel like I've repieced my heart back together and filling the break. Some of the chips that you can't find, they're gone, girl.
They're
You're
gone.
like, I'm gonna step on that in 20 years.
Yep,
But
it you will.
yeah, and just repair those cracks with liquid gold, and to say it's now this is a more beautiful, more valuable thing. And so that's where I'm showing up today. And the days that I'm not making any money right now, there's nothing, and that's scary, right? Back to the path of having a job, having a paycheck, da 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 da. I'm kind of gliding out there. And
Yeah,
I have to not get scared, get afraid. And when I wake up, I'm like, oh my God, I'm okay. It's all good. It is all good. Just keep going. Keep going.
you just have to keep going. So it's interesting. My very first guest, Annette, talked about the same. Her heart looked the same way. Totally different situation.
Mm,
But it's the kasugi, and I think that's how you say it. But anyway, the fortified with the gold. And when you were just now saying that, I'm like, wow, so many of us break in one way or another. And then it's how you put yourself back together. I don't know anybody who's never had a breaking moment. I just don't. Especially those of us who are running hard and fast, we're gonna break. And if you put it together and you're a better, stronger, more valuable version of yourself, and I don't mean value in terms of money. I mean value in terms of what do you bring to the world? How do you contribute? How do you show up for yourself and for everybody else? It's such an incredible gift. We don't always view it as a gift, but now that I'm on the other side, I can tell you that all those dark days I experienced last year, and that feeling of just being so black and dead and nothingness inside, when I had a smile on my face and arguably in the best place in my career, all of that led me to fulfillment. But it had to break before it could be shiny and beautiful.
yeah.
Before we say goodbye, what is one piece of advice that you would give listeners?
I don't like giving advice anymore. But
Okay.
I will say that people will say that there's a path, or there's a certain path, that's the right path, and we need to listen to ourselves to define what our right path is. Don't let anybody else tell you what that path is and should be. This is from age 18. You don't know if you're going to go to college. You don't know if you what you're going to do. You take some time to think about what you feel and what feels right for you. Or you're 50 or you're 60 and you just got laid off and you're like, I don't know what I'm going to do. Define your path forward. Make it your path based on what you truly believe brings you fulfillment as a person, because I think a more fulfilled person is just a better person in general, a better human. And you're just going to show up so much more for yourself, your community, for each other. We really need it. Like, we need to be strong for each other, show up, bring your skills, but don't let anybody else tell you what that path forward is, because nobody knows the right path, because it's your path. It's your unique, beautiful, special, scary, terrifying, gorgeous, lovely, simple path forward.
Thank you so much for being here. And as you're finding your path, if you're not sure you're on the right path, I definitely suggest that you download the FGAP. Think about what your heart looks like. Try to do some things to pour back into yourself, even if it's just 3 minutes on the first day where you sit and breathe and don't look at your phone, or if you go on a walk and you see a pigeon, or if you see a beautiful hibiscus flower, or whatever it is that feeds your soul. Go do something today to try to find your way back. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week.